There is a rule that saves a man from the destruction of his own making. A rule not taught in classrooms, not passed around in friendly conversations, not applauded by the crowd. It is too quiet for that, too sacred. It is the rule that separates the man who merely survives from the man who masters. The rule is simple, yet demands everything. Govern yourself completely or be governed by everything else. This rule does not shout. It whispers. It does not rush in with noise. It waits in silence. It is the rule that holds you in line when your emotions try to drag you out. It is the rule that keeps your mouth shut when anger says, "Speak now." It is the rule that tells you to walk away when pride wants to stay and fight. It is the rule that says no when the world screams yes. And it is the only rule that will save your life again and again, because the undisciplined man is already halfway to his grave, not the physical one, but the grave of peace, of purpose, of legacy, of respect. The man who forgets this rule becomes a slave to every fleeting urge. If he wants something, he chases it. If he feels something, he says it. If he desires something, he grabs it. And while that may look like freedom, it's the deepest kind of bondage, because anything that controls you becomes your master. The man who cannot say no to his own impulses will be ruled by other people's agendas. He'll say yes to attention, to addiction, to comfort, to validation, to women who don't value him, to friends who drain him, to situations that rob him, all because he never enforced the rule. The rule is the quiet line you draw in your own soul. No one sees it, but everyone eventually feels it. It is the line that says, "This is how I operate. This is where I stop. This is where I begin." It is not a list of do's and don'ts imposed from the outside. It is not legalism, not self-hatred, not rigidity. It is freedom, because a man who is ruled from within cannot be shaken from without. He doesn't need a leash to keep him in place. He is held together by the strength of his own conviction. Without the rule, everything unravels. Time gets wasted. Words get tossed carelessly. Days blur into nights with no fruit to show for them. People take advantage of your lack of clarity. Women test your boundaries. The world mocks your inconsistency. And when the consequences come, you don't even see them coming because you were too busy reacting to every trigger, pleasing every person, chasing every thrill. But the man who lives by the rule sees the trap before he steps into it. He smells the danger before it arrives. He walks away when others are still standing there, hoping for change. The rule tells a man how to govern his time, because time is the one thing you cannot get back. Every undisciplined moment is a stolen opportunity. Every wasted hour is a future regret. The rule doesn't just say, "Wake up early." It says, "Wake up with purpose." It doesn't just say, "Work hard." It says, "Work intentionally." It doesn't just say, "Be productive." It says, "Be strategic," because motion without direction is the cousin of chaos. And the man who follows the rule does not move for the sake of motion. He moves with meaning. The rule also governs the tongue. The mouth is a weapon, and the undisciplined man fires it recklessly. He curses his own future by what he says in frustration. He loses relationships by what he blurts out in pride. He sabotages peace by talking when silence was the wiser choice. But the man who lives by the rule knows that power doesn't always speak. Sometimes it listens, sometimes it pauses, sometimes it smiles and walks away, because the rule says, "Win the war, not the argument." And some wars are won by walking away with your peace, not staying to prove your point. The rule demands a high price. It costs you your laziness. It costs you your excuses. It costs you the comfort of blame. Because once you adopt the rule, you can no longer point fingers at the world. You can't blame your father, your ex, your friends, your job, your past. The rule puts the mirror in your hands and says, this is where it starts. That's heavy, that's uncomfortable, but that's how a man grows, because responsibility is the seed of power. If you never own your mess, you'll never own your mastery. The rule guards a man's soul from distractions. In a world that worships noise, the disciplined man is called strange. While others are addicted to scrolling, he's reading. While others are chasing clout, he's building. While others are obsessed with being seen, he's obsessed with being solid, not because he's antisocial, not because he's angry, but because he understands something most never learn. Attention is currency, and the undisciplined man spends it on foolishness. But the man who obeys the rule invests it in legacy. He doesn't chase dopamine, he chases destiny. The rule makes a man strong where others break. Life will throw pain at you. It will test you with betrayal, with loss, with rejection, with failure. The undisciplined man collapses when life hits. He drowns in anger. He escapes in addiction. He gets paralyzed by bitterness. But the man of discipline feels the same pain and still moves forward. He doesn't deny the hurt, but he doesn't let the hurt become his home. He doesn't curse God in the storm, he builds an ark. And while others wait for the flood to end, he's already preparing for the mountain. There will always be people who try to pull you out of discipline. Women who don't love you, but love what they can get from you. Friends who waste your time with drama and small thinking. Environments that make mediocrity feel normal. The rule says you don't have to stay. You don't have to entertain chaos. You don't have to be available to everyone just because they know your name. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not arrogant. You're aligned. The rule gives you permission to walk alone, not because you hate people, but because you value your peace. The undisciplined man thinks freedom is doing whatever he wants, but freedom without order becomes self-destruction. There's no power in doing what feels good if what feels good destroys what you truly want. The rule reminds you that pleasure is temporary, but consequences are long. It whispers to you before the late night call, before the angry text, before the shortcut, before the self-sabotage. It says, remember who you are, remember where you're going, remember what you've built. Don't throw it all away for a moment of weakness. That whisper has saved more men than applause ever could. The rule is also what teaches you to wait. The undisciplined man rushes into relationships, into deals, into decisions. He gets impatient with process. He wants results now. But the man who obeys the rule knows that patience is not weakness. It is strength under control. He knows that what's rushed is rarely right. He knows that timing matters just as much as vision. So he waits, not passively, but actively. He prepares in the silence. He sharpens in the delay. He grows in the waiting room while others sleep through it. A man without the rule may gain the world but lose himself. He may climb ladders only to fall from heights he wasn't ready for. He may impress crowds but disappoint his own reflection. He may win the applause of strangers while betraying the voice of his conscience. But the man who walks with the rule sleeps well at night. He looks in the mirror and respects the man staring back because he didn't cheat. He didn't fake. He didn't bend to fit in. He stood quietly, firmly, unapologetically. The rule is what makes a man trustworthy in business, in love, in friendship. People may not always like you, but if you're disciplined, they will respect you because they know where you stand. They know what you'll tolerate and what you won't. They know your yes is yes and your no is no. That kind of clarity creates safety. That kind of strength creates influence. You don't have to scream to be heard when your life speaks louder than your voice. And even when no one sees your discipline, the fruit will speak for itself. The peace, the consistency, the strength under pressure, the maturity in storms, the humility in success, the stillness in chaos. These things don't come from books or podcasts. They come from living by the rule when it would have been easier to break it. They come from choosing what's right over what's easy. They come from 1,000 private victories that no one claps for, but you clap for yourself because you know what it cost. There will come a time when the rule is the only thing keeping you from falling, when temptation is loud, when pressure is high, when the easy way out looks inviting, when quitting feels like the only option. And in that moment, if the rule is in you, you will stand. You may shake, but you won't fall. You may hurt, but you won't run. You may cry, but you won't break, because the rule will hold you when your will is weak. And that's what saves you. Not talent, not luck, not applause. The rule. Live by the rule, and you'll walk with power. Break the rule, and you'll crawl through consequences. It's not magic. It's not mystery. It's the timeless truth hidden in plain sight. Govern yourself completely, or be governed by everything else. That is the rule. That is the difference. That is the salvation of every man who refuses to lose himself. A man can have purpose, he can have potential, he can even have power, but if he has no control over his emotions, all of it can burn to ash. That is the dangerous truth many never learn until it is too late. Emotions are not the enemy. They are part of being human. But emotions without control are the silent saboteurs of destiny. They disguise themselves as honesty, as passion, as urgency, but when left unchecked, they leave behind regret, broken bridges, wasted time, and shattered futures. It begins small. A moment of offense that turns into bitterness, a surge of anger that turns into violence, maybe not physical, but verbal, emotional, spiritual, a feeling of rejection that turns into obsession, a wound that is never healed, only buried. These moments compound. They stack on top of one another like kindling waiting for fire. And when the fire comes, it doesn't ask what you were trying to protect. It only destroys what you built. Emotions are the fuel. Control is the steering wheel. Without it, you crash every time. There are men who lost their families not because they didn't love them, but because they couldn't control what they felt. The frustration turned to rage. The sadness turned to silence. The pressure turned to blame. And suddenly, the people who once looked to them for protection were running from them for peace. There are women who stayed in toxic relationships far too long because emotion told them they were being loyal, when in truth, they were being imprisoned. There are leaders who fell from influence because one moment of emotional indulgence led them to compromise everything. Destiny is not destroyed in public. It is destroyed in private, in the quiet moments where emotion wins and self-control stays silent. The wrong text sent in passion, the wrong decision made in pride, the wrong response given in fear. A single uncontrolled emotion can open a door you spend 10 years trying to close again. And worse than the consequence is the knowledge that it was avoidable, that all of it could have been different if you had just taken a breath, taken a step back, taken a moment to master yourself. Control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't become what you feel. You can be angry and still respond in peace. You can be heartbroken and still walk away with dignity. You can be triggered and still choose silence. That is strength. That is maturity. That is power. The world will tell you to express everything. Let it out. Speak your truth. But truth without wisdom is reckless. Honesty without timing is foolish. And emotions without control are deadly. Control is what gives you the ability to pause between stimulus and response. That pause is where your destiny lives. In that pause, you decide if you will repeat cycles or break them, if you will fight or forgive, if you will speak or stay silent, if you will lash out or lean in, if you will walk away or react out of pride. That pause is where kings are crowned and fools are exposed. Most people don't pause. They explode, and then they try to clean up a mess that didn't have to happen. Control isn't natural, it's trained. It's built in the small moments, in the decisions that no one sees, choosing not to argue when provoked, choosing not to chase when ignored, choosing not to explain when misunderstood, choosing to sit with the emotion instead of acting on it. That kind of control isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applauded, but it builds a kind of man or woman the world can't break because they've already won the hardest war, the one inside. Think of how many dreams died because someone gave up too soon out of discouragement. Think of how many friendships ended because pride blocked an apology. Think of how many futures were sabotaged by fear disguised as wisdom. Emotion is powerful, and when it leads, it feels right. But just because it feels right doesn't mean it is. Feelings lie. Feelings fluctuate. Feelings don't care about your vision. They care about being felt. But destiny isn't built by what you feel. It's built by what you do despite what you feel. You must learn to sit with hard emotions without moving on them, to feel rejection and still choose worth, to feel fear and still take the risk, to feel anger and still respond with love, to feel jealousy and still celebrate others. That level of mastery doesn't come by accident. It comes by decision. You have to decide what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be reactive or responsible? Do you want to be driven by triggers or by truth? Do you want your destiny in your hands or in the hands of your emotions? Many people never become who they were meant to be because they never become strong enough to override what they feel. They confuse reaction with power, but real power isn't in reacting. It's in restraint. It's in being able to carry the fire of emotion without letting it consume everything around you. It's in feeling deeply but acting wisely. It's in having the storm inside and still offering peace outside. That kind of power changes everything. It saves relationships. It saves reputations. It saves your future. Control is a gift you give to yourself. It means you don't always get the satisfaction of clapping back, but you get the peace of knowing you didn't become what hurt you. It means you don't always get to be understood, but you get the power of walking in silence with integrity. It means you don't always get the last word, but you get the last laugh, because the person who can't control their emotions is always controlled by someone else's. And that is the greatest form of slavery, when your inner state is ruled by outer conditions. You cannot be emotionally free and emotionally reactive at the same time. Freedom means you choose your response. It means you rise above the trigger. You elevate above the noise. You don't engage every battle. You don't chase every critic. You don't fall for every trap. The emotion may come, but the decision is still yours. And that is the space where greatness is built, in that sacred second between impulse and response. Emotion without control will make you sabotage the very thing you prayed for. You'll get the relationship, but ruin it with insecurity. You'll get the opportunity, but lose it with pride. You'll get the platform, but destroy it with ego, because you never dealt with the emotional immaturity beneath the surface. What you suppress eventually spills, and what you ignore eventually controls you. You have to do the inner work before life hands you the outer blessings. Otherwise, you'll curse your future with your feelings. Healing emotional wounds isn't optional. If you don't heal it, you will project it. You'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. You'll turn small misunderstandings into major betrayals. You'll see enemies where there are allies. You'll sabotage love before it has a chance to take root. Control begins with awareness. When you feel the emotion rise, ask yourself, what is this really about? Is this about this moment, or is this about a past you haven't faced yet? Is this about the person in front of you or the person who broke you behind you? Emotional control doesn't mean you don't cry. It means you don't drown. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings don't get to drive. You acknowledge them, but you don't obey them. You let them inform you, not rule you. That's what maturity looks like. That's what wisdom looks like. That's what destiny demands. Because emotion can either be your compass or your cage, and you decide which one it will be. Every time you resist the urge to react, you gain strength. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you gain power. Every time you override your pride for the sake of peace, you gain wisdom. These are the invisible wins that shape the visible life. These are the private decisions that build public favor. These are the hidden roots that produce the lasting fruit. Because the people who seem calm under pressure weren't born that way. They trained for it. They bled in silence so they could lead in chaos. There will come a time when everything in you wants to respond in anger, when your whole body screams to retaliate, when your heart races to react. And in that moment, the real you will be revealed. Will you let the storm inside create a storm outside? Or will you breathe, pause, rise, and respond from a place of clarity? That one moment will shape how others see you, but more importantly, how you see yourself. Don't let emotion rob you of what you've been building. Don't let a temporary feeling cost you a permanent loss. Don't let pride be the reason you push away the very thing that was meant to bless you. Don't let fear convince you to play small. Don't let hurt keep you from healing. Don't let jealousy turn admiration into hatred. You were created to master your inner world, not be mastered by it. Emotion without control is like fire in a dry forest. It spreads fast, destroys more than intended, and leaves you with nothing but regret. But fire with control becomes a tool, a power source, a light in darkness. Your emotions are not the enemy. They are energy, but energy needs direction, and only you can give it. That is your power. That is your responsibility. That is your calling. Control your emotions, or they will control your destiny. The choice is yours, every moment, every conversation, every thought, every decision, because your future isn't shaped by how you feel. It's shaped by what you choose when you feel it. And that is where greatness is born.